Millionaire sets trap for blind wife, but her horse does the unbelievable. In the grand mansion amidst the lush green fields of New England, where luxury and opulence reigned supreme, lived an ostensibly perfect couple. Robert Montgomery, a real estate millionaire, exuded charm and power wherever he went. His wife, Emily, blind since the age of 5, possessed a unique sensitivity that compensated for her lack of sight, capturing the most subtle changes in her environment and the people around her. Among the meticulously maintained gardens and marble hallways echoed the hoofbeats of Shadow, the majestic black horse that had become Emily's eyes and her inseparable companion. The connection between them transcended the ordinary, as if they shared a secret language that only they understood. But behind the silk curtains and cordial smiles, a shadow grew in Robert's heart. Boredom and dissatisfaction with his marriage consumed him, fueling dark thoughts that would soon turn into a cruel plan. He had no idea, however, that the special bond between Emily and Shadow would challenge his darkest intentions, proving that true strength does not reside in the eyes, vision, but in the soul's wisdom. Robert Montgomery was no longer satisfied with a life of luxury and comfort. Each passing day, the weight of his dissatisfaction grew like a dense shadow over his marriage. The millionaire watched his wife Emily with a mix of guilt and resentment, while his thoughts wandered to a different existence, free from the responsibilities that suffocated him. In the lonely nights in his office between sips of aged whiskey, Robert entertained fantasies of a new life. He imagined traveling the world, meeting different people, living adventures that his marriage to a blind woman seemed to prevent. The image he had built of a dedicated and understanding husband began to crumble from within, corroded by the bitterness of his repressed desires. The sound of Shadow's hooves in the garden, so comforting to Emily, deeply irritated him. That animal seemed to understand his wife better than he ever could. The special connection between the two only highlighted his own emotional distancing, further fueling his desire for change. In his darkest moments, when the mansion slept and only the crickets dared to break the silence, Robert began to plot. His mind, once occupied with business and investments, was now architecting a definitive exit from that marriage. It wouldn't be an ordinary divorce. His reputation wouldn't survive the scandal of abandoning a blind wife. It had to be something more elaborate, something that would free him without tarnishing his image in society. What Robert didn't realize was that his plans, born from dissatisfaction and selfishness, were about to awaken forces he had never imagined existed. The relationship between Robert and Emily deteriorated like a flower deprived of water. While she struggled to keep the flame of love alive, demonstrating admirable inner strength through small gestures and attempts at dialogue, her husband grew more distant, building invisible walls between them. Emily sensed the subtle changes in Robert's behavior through her other heightened senses. His tone of voice, once affectionate, now carried notes of impatience and irritation. His steps, which used to be light and close, became heavy and distant. Even his familiar scent rarely lingered in the mansion's air lately. Meals together, once moments of intimacy and warm conversations, turned into silent and tense encounters. The clinking of cutlery against fine porcelain echoed through the room as a constant reminder of the growing chasm between them. Emily tried to start conversations, share her daily discoveries and feelings, but received only monosyllabic responses and impatient sighs. Shadow, her faithful equine companion, became increasingly important in her routine. The black horse showed an extraordinary sensitivity to her emotions, offering comfort in moments of loneliness with his gentle neighs and constant presence. During long rides through the property's fields, Emily found the peace her marriage no longer provided. Robert, in turn, watched this special connection between his wife and the animal with a mix of disdain and envy. The deep bond they shared only highlighted his own inability to truly connect with Emily. His thoughts, growing darker by the day, began to take shape in concrete plans. One afternoon, as he watched Emily ride gracefully through the fields despite her blindness, Robert felt his heart harden. His wife's determination to overcome her limitations, instead of inspiring him, only fueled his resentment. It was then that he decided he needed to eliminate Emily from his life. The internal conflict that settled in his chest was not about morality or guilt, but about method and execution. how to orchestrate the end of a marriage that everyone saw as an example of dedication and love, how to get rid of a wife who, despite her disability, had earned the admiration of everyone around her. Shadow, as if sensing Robert's dark intentions, began to behave more protectively towards Emily. His attentive eyes followed Robert whenever he approached, and his neighs seemed to carry silent warnings. The animal, endowed with a perception that transcended the normal, became an invisible barrier between the couple. The mansion's atmosphere, once welcoming and serene, began to soak in increasing tension. The staff noticed subtle changes in the couple's dynamics, exchanging worried glances when witnessing Emily's frustrated attempts to regain lost intimacy. The air seemed heavier, filled with secrets and unrevealed intentions. Each day that passed, the challenge of maintaining appearances became more exhausting for Robert. His mask of a devoted husband began to show cracks, and only his social position and the built-up reputation prevented others from perceiving the true nature of his feelings. The stage was set for a tragedy, but fate, with the help of an unlikely four-legged guardian, was preparing a surprising twist. The inciting incident delved into Robert's emotional complexity during an elegant event at the mansion. The evening unfolded with sophistication, guests mingling in the luxurious halls, crystal champagne glasses reflecting soft lights. In the center of that artificially harmonious environment, Robert felt increasingly suffocated. Emily, dressed in an elegant navy blue silk gown, moved with impressive grace, compensating for her blindness with an almost mystical sensitivity. Her movements were calculated but fluid, as if silently conversing with the space around her. Shadow, her horse, seemed to be present through an invisible energy that surrounded her, even while being distant on the property. During the event, Robert observed a young guest, Amanda, a 32-year-old businesswoman, whose seductive gaze made him feel an adrenaline long forgotten. Each of his approaches to Amanda represented another step towards betrayal, not just marital, but of all the vows he had once promised. The ambient music, soft and enveloping, created a hypnotic atmosphere. The guests' whispers blended with the sound of violins, forming a melody that seemed to orchestrate the couple's destiny. Robert felt that that night would mark an irreversible transformation in his life. In a moment of distraction near the glass terrace, Amanda whispered words that would definitively awaken his desires for change. "You deserve to be happy, Robert. Commitments don't always bind us forever." Such words echoed in his mind like a call to freedom. Emily, despite her condition, seemed to perceive something different in the environment. Her delicate fingers subtly squeezed the crystal glass, her movements becoming more cautious. Her body exuded an almost imperceptible tension, as if sensing the invisible plots unfolding. The incident that would define everything happened in the final minutes of the event. Robert, intoxicated by the combination of champagne and possibilities, would simulate a supposed accident, a perfect pretext to unleash the plans he had already mentally architected against Emily. The night advanced like a film, foreboding profound transformations. Robert's secrets began to overflow, and fate, or perhaps Shadow's protective spirit, waited, patient and attentive, to reveal the true conclusion of that plot. The revelation that followed was like a whisper, laden with mystery. Emily, with her heightened perception, began to unravel hidden layers of Robert's personality. Her senses, amplified by the absence of sight, captured every nuance, every hesitation in her husband. During a silent afternoon, while the sounds of birds punctuated the environment, Emily realized that Robert was no longer the man she had known years ago. His steps, once confident and close, now sounded distant and laden with a veiled intention. The scent that once enveloped him had changed, blending into a strange aroma of tension and undeclared secrets. With an almost supernatural sensitivity, Emily began to weave an invisible web of understanding. Her fingers, when touching objects in Robert's office, sensed different energies, discreetly hidden papers, agendas with hurried notes, a world of intentions her husband tried to conceal. Shadow, her faithful companion, seemed to function as an extension of her perception. The black horse exhibited increasingly protective behavior, as if sensing the dangers approaching. His neighs, once serene, took on warning tones whenever Robert approached with dubious intentions. The connection between Emily and Shadow transcended common understanding. It was as if they shared a secret language, a survival code that Robert could never decipher. Every movement of the horse, every subtle reaction from Emily, formed a complex choreography of protection and intuition. On nights when Robert believed he was alone in his office, Emily heard every sigh, every phone click, every movement that betrayed his plots. Her blindness was not a limitation, but a gateway to perceptions that eyes normally wouldn't reach. The revelation took shape not as a dramatic moment, but as a delicate process of understanding. Emily knew that Robert was planning something, not through concrete evidence, but through a sensation that traversed her skin, an instinct sharpened by years of overcoming. Her world transformed into a silent battlefield, where every movement, every breath carried the weight of an imminent confrontation. Emily's apparent fragility turned into an inner fortress, fueled by the almost mystical complicity with Shadow. Robert, in his arrogance, believed he was building a perfect plan, but he had no idea that Emily was already a step ahead, unraveling every attempt at manipulation with a precision that would leave him astonished. The first twist was about to happen, and the epicenter of this transformation would be the inexplicable connection between an apparently vulnerable woman and her guardian horse. Determined to put his trap into action, Robert began to architect every detail with the coldness of a determined strategist. In the days following the event that marked his decision, he meticulously mapped the mansion's spaces, identifying vulnerable points that could be manipulated to simulate an accident involving Emily. The luxurious office became his secret headquarters. There, among property maps and architectural plans, Robert plotted routes and premeditated scenarios. His hands, once accustomed only to closing big deals, now drew routes of possible accidents that could seem absolutely natural. The mansion's environments, once welcoming, transformed into territories of silent tension. The long marble hallways and elegant staircases were now viewed as potential traps. Robert studied every curve, every change in elevation, calculating possibilities that could compromise Emily's safety without raising suspicion. Meanwhile, Emily developed her own survival strategy. Her blindness, far from being a limitation, proved to be an extraordinary source of perception. She developed an almost supernatural sensitivity to detect subtle changes in the environment, perceiving the slightest alterations in Robert's behavior. The special bond with Shadow gained increasing importance in this context. The Black Horse seemed to understand Robert's dark plans even before they materialized. His instinctive reactions, low neighs, and protective movements towards Emily indicated a connection that transcended human understanding. Lucas, Emily's childhood friend and confidant, became crucial at this moment. Discreetly, he began monitoring Robert's movements, offering invisible but consistent support. His visits to the property, seemingly casual, aimed to assess the potential risks Emily might face. Emily's daily routine, seemingly ordinary, turned into an exercise of resilience and adaptation. Her rides with Shadow gained new meaning. They were no longer just moments of leisure, but true training and strengthening sessions. The horse seemed to prepare her for the challenges to come. The adaptive technologies Emily used became more than just accessibility tools. They were true extensions of her perception, allowing her to map spaces and detect minimal changes. Motion sensors, sound devices, and her keen sense of orientation formed an invisible protection network. Robert, in his obsession, failed to realize that every move he made was being carefully observed. Emily, with her extraordinary sensitivity, captured the nuances of his energy. Heavier steps, more tense breathing. The mansion's environment, once a sanctuary of comfort, turned into a silent battlefield. Each day, the confrontation between Robert and Emily took on new contours. It was a complex dance of power, where Emily's apparent fragility revealed itself as an almost mystical strength, fueled by the incomprehensible connection with Shadow and unshakable inner resilience. In the intricate web of relationships surrounding the Montgomery mansion, the figure of Lucas emerged, Emily's childhood friend, whose presence would become a crucial point in the unfolding plot. The son of longtime family employees, Lucas cultivated a deep, almost ancestral loyalty to Emily, transcending conventional friendship. His work as an accessibility consultant brought him constantly closer to Emily, allowing him to observe subtle changes in Robert's behavior that went unnoticed by others. With a background in inclusive design and psychology, Lucas had developed a special sensitivity to understand the challenges faced by people with disabilities. The connection between Lucas and Emily was almost telepathic. When they met, they exchanged looks and gestures laden with complicity, as if sharing a secret code. He not only offered practical support, assisting Emily with her technological and architectural adaptations, but also represented an emotional safe harbor amid the growing marital tensions. Shadow, the black horse, seemed to recognize Lucas as an ally. During meetings on the property, the animal displayed a unique receptiveness, allowing Lucas to approach without showing any distrust. It was as if the three, Emily, Lucas, and Shadow, formed a trinity of mutual protection against the shadows Robert tried to project. The moments when Lucas visited the mansion became true sessions of silent strategy. While sharing tea on the veranda or riding through the fields, they exchanged information and impressions about Robert's behavior. Emily, using her extraordinary sensory perception, captured the slightest details that Lucas later analyzed with precision. Lucas's academic background in assistive technologies made him a fundamental consultant for Emily. He constantly researched and developed devices that expanded her autonomy, creating innovative solutions that turned limitations into possibilities. Location devices, motion sensors, and intelligent navigation systems were direct results of his dedication. His presence represented more than simple support. It was an extension of the protection network that Emily unconsciously built. Lucas functioned as her external eyes, discreetly monitoring Robert's movements and identifying potential risks before they materialized. Their friendship carried an almost brotherly energy, founded on years of complicity and mutual respect. Lucas never positioned himself as a savior or superior protector, but as a genuine partner in Emily's journey, recognizing her strength and autonomy. While Robert plotted his dark plans, completely ignoring the existence of this protection network, Lucas silently prepared. His presence would be crucial to uncover the millionaire's true intentions and protect Emily from the approaching traps. The complicity between Lucas, Emily, and Shadow formed a triangle of almost mystical resistance, where loyalty and intuition would overcome any calculated strategy. Fate was preparing a twist in which true strength would not reside in physical sight but in inner clarity and the inexplicable connection between truly united beings. Robert's internal conflict took on increasingly darker contours. His thoughts, once occupied with business strategies, now obsessively focused on how to get rid of Emily. The mansion, once a symbol of his perfect life, had transformed into a labyrinth of tensions and unrevealed secrets. Each day, the abyss between Robert and Emily widened almost imperceptibly. He battled a deep guilt for betraying a woman who had always supported him unconditionally. Moments of intimacy, once so natural, now felt like rehearsals for a theatrical play where neither truly knew their role. Emily, with her heightened sensitivity, sensed every nuance of this transformation. Her other senses developed an almost supernatural perception, revealing hidden layers of Robert's intentions. The sound of his steps, the scent of his perfume, the subtle vibrations of his energy, all became clues to a mystery she needed to unravel. Shadow, the black horse, became more than just a pet. His presence acted as a silent guardian, a protective energy hovering over Emily. His low neighs and calculated movements suggested an understanding that transcended human logic, as if a mystical connection bound them beyond the material world. Robert's moral dilemmas consumed him from within. Every plan he devised against Emily was immediately followed by waves of remorse and hesitation. His mind oscillated between the desire for freedom and the weight of years of commitment, creating an emotional whirlwind that partially paralyzed him. The mansion's routine absorbed this tension like an invisible sponge. The staff sensed the whispers of a storm about to explode but remained discreet, silent witnesses to a drama unfolding in the shadows of the luxurious rooms. The air grew denser, loaded with secrets and unmet expectations. Emily, in turn, refused to be a victim. Her blindness, far from being a limitation, transformed into a source of extraordinary strength. Every challenge became an opportunity for growth, every obstacle an invitation to develop unique survival and perception skills. The bond between Emily and Shadow gained almost mystical dimensions. They communicated through a silent language, sharing fears, hopes, and protection strategies. The horse became the eyes Emily lacked, anticipating dangers and offering support that went far beyond the physical. Robert felt increasingly cornered by his own choices. The possibility of hurting Emily consumed him with guilt, but his desire for freedom was equally powerful. His internal world transformed into a battlefield where reason, emotion, and convenience waged a relentless war. Night slowly descended over the mansion, bringing with it unrevealed secrets and unexplored possibilities. Fate seemed to wait, patient and attentive, to unveil the true conclusion of this complex plot of love, betrayal, and overcoming. The tension in Robert and Emily's mansion reached unimaginable levels. The environments, once serene and elegant, now pulsed with a dark energy of expectation and imminent danger. Emily, despite her blindness, had developed an almost supernatural perception of Robert's subtle movements, capturing every nuance of his intentions through her heightened senses. Days passed like a silent dance of distrust. Robert moved through the property, carefully calculating each step, preparing invisible traps that could compromise Emily's safety without raising suspicion. His hands, once accustomed only to closing big deals, now drew routes of possible accidents with disturbing coldness. Shadow, the black horse, became Emily's invisible guardian. His intimidating presence and protective behavior created an almost mystical barrier between the couple. His low neighs and instinctive movements seemed to carry silent warnings, as if he could foresee Robert's dark plans before they even materialized. The connection between Emily and Shadow transcended the understandable. Together, they developed a survival strategy that went beyond human logic. During rides through the property's fields, they seemed to exchange information through a secret language, preparing for the challenges approaching. Lucas, Emily's childhood friend, became a fundamental ally in this plot. Discreetly, he monitored Robert's movements, offering invisible but consistent support. His visits to the property, seemingly casual, aimed to assess the risks Emily might face. The adaptive technologies Emily used became extensions of her perception. Motion sensors and sound devices created an invisible protection network, allowing her to map spaces and detect the slightest alterations in her environment. Every inch of the mansion was meticulously explored by her heightened senses. Robert did not realize that every move he made was being carefully observed. Emily captured the nuances of his energy: heavier steps, more tense breathing, moments of hesitation. The mansion's environment, once a sanctuary of comfort, transformed into a silent battlefield where every second could mean the difference between survival and destruction. The couple's daily routine had become a dangerous game of cat and mouse. Robert believed he had control, planning every detail with the coldness of a strategist, but he had no idea of the extraordinary strength Emily was developing. Her apparent fragility revealed itself as an almost supernatural resistance, fueled by the inexplicable connection with Shadow and unshakable inner resilience. Each day, the confrontation took on new contours. It was a complex dance of power, where fate seemed to prepare a twist that no one, not even Robert, could foresee. The mansion's silence held explosive secrets, and the true battle was about to begin. Robert's dark plan took on increasingly clear contours when an unexpected event completely altered the course of his intentions. During a sunny afternoon, while Emily rode calmly through the property's fields, an almost tragic incident revealed the true strength of her connection with Shadow. The black horse, always alert, sensed something different in the environment. His muscles subtly tensed, his ears rotated in quick, precise movements, capturing sounds that escaped human perception. Emily, immersed in her unique sensitivity, felt the change in Shadow's energy, a shiver running down her spine. Suddenly, the horse stopped the ride, making a sudden movement that almost threw Emily off balance. His hooves struck the ground forcefully, producing a dry and threatening sound. To any inattentive observer, it would seem like an instinctive behavior of a startled animal, but to Emily, it meant much more. Shadow was signaling imminent danger. His reaction was not one of fear, but of absolute protection. The calculated movements of the animal revealed an intelligence that transcended typical horse behavior. It was as if a special consciousness guided him, anticipating invisible threats. At the same moment, a carefully prepared trap by Robert, a seemingly secure fence but strategically weakened, began to give way. Shadow reacted instantly, diverting Emily from a potentially fatal fall. His movements were precise, almost supernatural, demonstrating an inexplicable harmony with his blind owner. The connection between Emily and Shadow revealed something beyond common human understanding. It was not just a bond between a rider and her horse, but a symbiosis that defied all conventional logic. The animal seemed to absorb Emily's emotions, anticipating dangers before they even materialized. Robert, watching from a distance, felt a chill of fear. His meticulously designed plan was crumbling before his eyes. Emily's supposed fragility transformed into resilient strength, enhanced by Shadow's protective presence. The horse was not just a pet, but an almost mystical guardian. The incident lasted only a few seconds but revealed profound truths. Emily, without seeing, understood more than Robert could ever imagine. Her sensory world, so different from the visual world, allowed her to perceive layers of reality that escaped ordinary eyes. Shadow was her extension, her protector, her true companion. In that moment, Robert realized that his sinister plans would face resistance far beyond what he had imagined. The connection between Emily and Shadow represented an almost insurmountable obstacle, a force that challenged his darkest intentions. The trap he had planned had become his own trap. The revelation was clear. True strength does not reside in physical sight, but in the ability to connect, to perceive beyond the obvious. Emily and Shadow formed a unit that Robert, in his arrogance, could never comprehend or overcome. Preparation for the climax plunged into an atmosphere of almost palpable tension. Robert Montgomery felt his plan unfolding like a complex web, where every calculated move could mean his liberation or his ruin. The mansion, once a symbol of luxury and harmony, had transformed into a stage of silent conflicts. Emily sensed the subtle changes with her extraordinary sensitivity. Her movements, once fluid and confident, now carried an almost feline caution. Shadow, her companion horse, seemed to form with her a unit of perception and protection that transcended common human understanding. The days leading up to the final confrontation were marked by heavy energy, loaded with secrets and unrevealed intentions. Robert observed Emily in minute detail, studying her movements, seeking to find the perfect vulnerability to execute his plan. Every step she took was analyzed with the coldness of a predator calculating the exact moment of attack. The connection between Emily and Shadow became increasingly evident. The black horse seemed to function as an extension of her senses, anticipating dangers, modifying routes, protecting her from invisible threats. His instinctive reactions turned into an almost supernatural shield against Robert's intentions. Lucas, Emily's close friend, also began to perceive the impending confrontation. His visits to the property became more frequent, always discreet, but attentive to any suspicious movement from Robert. His role as a silent protector gained increasing importance in that complex plot. The mansion's environments, once welcoming, turned into territories of psychological warfare. The long marble hallways, the elegant staircases, the meticulously organized gardens, all seemed to carry an invisible tension, as if the walls could at any moment reveal the secrets they held. Robert knew he needed to be extremely careful. Every move he made could awaken Emily's heightened perception. His trap needed to be so subtle that it seemed absolutely natural, without raising any suspicion. The coldness of his calculations mixed with an almost desperate urgency to free himself. Emily, in turn, prepared in her own way. Her adaptive technologies, once simple accessibility tools, transformed into true security systems. Sensors, sound devices, and her extraordinary perception formed an invisible protection network that Robert completely underestimated. The final confrontation seemed inevitable. It was like a silent duel, where each participant knew only part of the other's cards. Robert believed he had the advantage, but he had no idea of the true strength he would find in Emily and Shadow, a connection that went far beyond the understandable, a bond that defied all expectations. The preparation for For the climax was like a complex dance where every move could mean victory or defeat. And at the center of this plot, Emily and Shadow awaited, united by a bond that Robert could never break or comprehend. The final confrontation erupted like a silent thunderbolt in the mansion. Emily, with her extraordinary perception, and Shadow, her equine guardian, prepared to expose Robert's sinister intentions. The millionaire had calculated every detail of his trap, believing that his coldness and intelligence would make him invincible. But he did not count on the almost mystical connection between Emily and Shadow, a bond that transcended the limits of human understanding. At the exact moment Robert prepared his fatal blow, the black horse reacted with a primitive and protective energy. His hooves struck the marble floor with a dull, threatening sound, alerting Emily to the imminent danger. It was as if Shadow could see through his blind owner's closed eyes, anticipating every treacherous move. Emily, supported by her heightened sensitivity and Shadow's instinct, began to unravel Robert's plot. Her delicate hands, once perceived as fragile, moved with calculated precision. Every gesture she made carried an inner strength that Robert had never imagined existed. The confrontation would not be physical but a battle of perceptions. Emily used her support network, adaptive technologies, Shadow's intuition and Lucas's discretion, to create an invisible shield against her husband's intentions. Every move she made was a silent response to Robert's cruelty. Shadow positioned himself between Emily and Robert like a mythical guardian, his black eyes reflecting an intelligence that went beyond animal comprehension. The horse did not just protect but challenged Robert with an almost supernatural presence, revealing that true strength does not reside in sight, but in deep connection. Robert felt his plan crumble. The woman he considered vulnerable transformed into a resilient force, supported by a companion that defied all conventional logic. His cold calculations dissolved before an energy he could not comprehend. At the climax of the confrontation, Emily revealed not only her inner strength, but also her deep understanding of Robert's true intentions. With precise words and unshakable calm, she exposed him, destroying the facade of the perfect husband he had built over the years. Shadow remained by her side, not as a mere animal, but as a powerful ally. Together, they formed a unit that Robert could neither comprehend nor defeat. Every move they made was a declaration of freedom, resistance against silent oppression. The confrontation ended not with violence, but with a definitive transformation. Emily claimed her autonomy, exposed Robert, and proved that true strength does not reside in physical sight, but in the ability to perceive beyond the obvious, to feel beyond the visible, to resist beyond the expected. The immediate reactions and consequences of the confrontation between Robert, Emily, and Shadow triggered a profound and irreversible transformation in the family dynamics. The event Robert had planned as a silent trap had turned into his own moral judgment, exposing his true intentions to everyone around him. The first reaction came from the mansion's staff, who watched the couple with a mix of surprise and relief. Years of silent tension finally found resolution. The environment, once heavy and oppressive, seemed to breathe a sigh of relief with Emily's courage in exposing Robert's true intentions. Lucas, Emily's close friend, became a fundamental piece in that moment of transition. His discreet yet consistent presence offered essential emotional support. He accompanied Emily in every move, ensuring her safety and well-being in the fragile moment. Robert experienced emotional vertigo. His meticulously architected plans crumbled like a house of cards. The calculative coldness that had always defined him melted in the face of his wife's unexpected strength. Every revelation plunged him deeper into an abyss of guilt and shame. Shadow, the black horse, remained a silent guardian by Emily's side. His presence went far beyond that of a mere pet. They recognized his almost mystical energy. The staff and family members acknowledged this special energy through their looks. Legal consequences began to unfold rapidly. Emily's lawyers, guided by Lucas, prepared a precise strategy to ensure her financial and emotional independence. Documents were organized, separate accounts established, and a new life began to be planned. The local media soon caught wind of the story. Rumors about the millionaire who had plotted against his blind wife spread quickly. Public opinion, initially divided, soon sided with Emily. admiring her courage and resilience in the face of such adversity. Robert's social circles began to distance themselves. Invitations to important events dwindled, and business relationships were reevaluated. His reputation, once untouchable, now carried an indelible stain of distrust and discredit. Emily, for her part, embarked on a journey of personal reconstruction. Far from victimizing herself, she transformed that experience into fuel for her growth. The adaptive technologies, the courses she had always dreamed of taking, the personal projects that had been put on hold, all now took on new perspectives. Shadow continued to be her inseparable companion on this journey. During rides through the property's fields, Emily felt not only physical freedom, but a deep emotional liberation. Every gallop represented a step of overcoming, every neigh a cry of independence. The mansion, once a symbol of imprisonment, transformed into a space of new beginnings. The formerly oppressive environments were redefined, painted with colors of hope and autonomy. Emily redesigned her life, not as a victim, but as the protagonist of her own story. The consequences of that confrontation would go far beyond the immediate moment. They represented a profound transformation, not only for Emily but for everyone involved. A living testament that true strength does not reside in physical sight, but in the ability to perceive, resist, and rebirth. The Montgomery Mansion, once a symbol of luxury and apparent harmony, transformed into a space of reconstruction and rebirth. Emily, now free from the bonds imposed by Robert, redesigned every environment with an energy of almost palpable renewal. The spacious rooms, which once seemed golden prisons, gained a new perspective. The heavy curtains were replaced with light fabrics that allowed generous natural light to enter. The dark wall tones were repainted in soft colors, light blues and woody greens that conveyed serenity and hope. Shadow continued to be her inseparable companion in this transformation. The black horse roamed freely through the redesigned gardens, like a silent guardian celebrating the newly won freedom. His presence was more than physical. It represented the deep connection that had saved Emily from a tragic fate. The mansion's interior spaces were reorganized to reflect Emily's new identity. Her office, now adapted with special technologies, became a center for personal and professional projects. State-of-the-art accessibility devices allowed her to navigate with complete autonomy, transforming her blindness into a platform of power and independence. Lucas, her close friend, assisted in the transition, ensuring that every physical change also represented an emotional transformation. Together, they redesigned not only the environments, but also Emily's life possibilities. The property, once a territory of silent tensions, became a sanctuary of freedom. The fields where Emily once rode under Robert's watchful eye now opened up as horizons of infinite possibilities. Shadow grazed freely, symbolizing the newfound liberation. The marks of the past were not erased but redefined. Each room held memories, but no longer as chains, and rather as chapters of a story of overcoming. Emily transformed the physical space into a reflection of her journey of reconstruction and empowerment. The mansion's energy had completely changed. From an oppressive and controlling environment, it metamorphosed into a territory of resilience, where Emily wrote her own narrative, free, strong, and absolutely in control of her destiny. Emily and Shadow's story transcended conventional human understanding. More than a tale of overcoming, it represented a manifesto on the true essence of inner strength and the incomprehensible connection between living beings. The ending was not just a conclusion, but an invitation to deep reflection on our own limitations and potentials. Emily's journey demonstrated that true vision does not reside in physical eyes, but in the ability to feel, perceive, and transform seemingly unchangeable realities. Her trajectory revealed that overcoming arises from genuine connections, whether with an animal, with technologies, or with oneself. The bond between Emily and Shadow symbolized something greater, the possibility to transcend barriers imposed by limiting and prejudiced societies. The final call was clear. Each person carries within them an extraordinary force, often dormant, waiting to be awakened. The story invited the audience to look beyond the obvious, to question established truths, and to value connections that go beyond immediate understanding. Emily's legacy was not in defeating Robert, but in demonstrating that true freedom is born from self-discovery, resilience, and the ability to continuously reinvent oneself, even in the face of the most adverse circumstances. The narrative concluded with a silent invitation. And you, what is your shadow? What is the strength that can free you from your own traps? What special connection can transform your story? In that moment, the Montgomery mansion was no longer a symbol of oppression, but a living testament that hope always finds a way, even when it seems most unlikely.